many people considering buying or building a new home, this would seem a sensible place to start. A large company with a good reputation, well-trained, skilled people that can apply a process which would ensure a quality outcome. This is another story from the files at Hobans. Real people caught in a terrible trap. When Mark and Cindy bought this house, now reclad in weatherboard, it was only 6 years old. It was built by a registered master builder, had a code compliance certificate from the council, and the master build warranty had just expired.
What happened here is that you had a whole house constructed where one person had a qualification. You've got a director of a building company, well, not just one building company, a number of building companies, who is a registered master builder who does not have any building qualifications. We had builders, we had subbies here, all these different people. No one had any qualifications, and yet that's allowed.
They lodged their Weathertight Homes Tribunal claim and then set about fixing the house first so they would know how much they should be claiming. When they removed the cladding, the impact of the construction incompetence was revealed.
This whole wall was actually structural risk of falling down. The windows, they never were installed with seals down the jambs. And the council's defence, which the tribunal accepted, was that we weren't here that day, we didn't see it, so we're not liable, we're no way liable for this. So I just think it's a load of horse shit. I cashed in my superannuation
under stress,
under a hardship clause.
Yeah.
We borrowed from banks, from parents, and if it wasn't probably for the help of all the parties involved in fixing it and also helping us with the claim, generously coming out and not making us pay bills and helping us out financially, we wouldn't have made it. We were just that close. And even today, we're still hanging on by the skin of our teeth.
What was the ultimate cost of repair?
The claimed figure was $343,000.
They took this figure to the tribunal, assuming at least their case was watertight. Astoundingly, the tribunal decision, whilst confirming the council and builder were liable, awarded them less than half the sum claimed.
We've obviously made an appeal with the district court, and that's where we're at.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. I'll need to set up some rules before we start.
When they bought the house, Mark and Cindy relied on the fact that it was built by a company advertising itself as a registered master builder. What they didn't know was that the owner of the company didn't have to be a qualified builder himself. He could register as a master builder simply because he owned a building company. Here's Master Builders past president Brett Metrick.
That particular builder has built many hundreds of homes, not directly.
So he hasn't been on the tools?
Hasn't been on the tools. You don't want the chef always running the restaurant. And if you go and buy a car from a car dealer's yard, the mechanics aren't on the front counter.
It's so important to build with the best.
But surely you wouldn't run a restaurant without a chef, or a garage without a qualified mechanic. It seems when you build a house, you don't have the same rules.
Master Builder represents the interests of its members. So membership of a trade or professional organisation doesn't really tell you very much about that person's experience. And for that reason, anyone that's having building work carried out needs to undertake their own due diligence. They need to make inquiries as to what that person's experience is and what they're capable of doing and how they perform.
The council's next involvement in the building process is the regular building inspections that ensure work meets the requirements of the building code.
I think councils have an obligation to actually put in inspection regimes which, when critical building elements are actually installed, such as joinery, that they actually ensure that it's put in. But they didn't. And so you had literally the majority of the joinery that went into this property incorrectly. And it leaked.
I would have expected that when someone says, I've done all these inspections, that they actually had been done and they were done properly and that they showed that the house complied in every respect. But that's obviously not the case.
When Colin and Diane's house was built, it was common for independent certifiers to be issuing building consents, carrying out inspections and issuing code compliance certificates. Of course, the councils can then legitimately say that they had absolutely nothing to do with it and that they bear no responsibility whatsoever. Sadly for those owners who have defective homes that were certified by independent certifiers, those companies have long since gone out of business when the Leaky homes crisis took hold, and therefore those owners simply do not have the ability to get compensation. One of the few names on Colin and Diane's council records was that of the actual building inspector. I wonder if Rangi George can give me some insight into how inspections were done in those days and how it could go so wrong. So we just want to have a bit of a chat to him.
Well, he should be home any time.
Oh, really? Hi, my name's John Gray. How does it make you feel having done inspections and then learning that, you know, within 7 years this house has been demolished to slab level because it's so badly damaged?
Yeah, I don't feel good at all. I mean, yeah, I don't know where the problem has occurred. I've got no idea. At that stage, there was a lot of stuff that came through that we were accepting on the grounds that it was to be installed in accordance with their manufacturer's specifications.
Yes.
And that included flashings. I feel sorry for them. I honestly do, but, you know, I can't... What do you want me to say?
In a subsequent letter, Mr George wished to make it clear to us that the certifier had no legal obligation to inspect external cladding, and that it was virtually impossible to identify internal defects on a visual inspection.
The concept of private certifiers was a good idea. It met market demands and it provided a flexible and credible alternative to the council inspection regime that was on offer at the time. Where it went wrong was that there was no insurance to back it up.
Surely if an inspector from either a council or an independent certifier was to inspect a building, that must be an assurance of quality.
No, it's not. There are lots of aspects of the building process that don't necessarily relate to code requirements. They're more qualitative aspects of the building process, and the council simply cannot and will not and should not be responsible for that.
For Mark and Cindy, the local Western Bay of Plenty District Council were the ones who inspected and signed off their home. The Weathertight Homes Tribunal found the council inspections had not reacted to defects that contributed to the leaky state of Mark and Cindy's home, and that there was clear evidence of negligence. I was wanting to know if Mr Sherman's available. Bob Sherman is a senior building control official, and he was the council's star witness at Mark and Cindy's hearing.
It's concerning leaky homes.
At the hearing, it came out that Bob Sherman was trained as a health inspector and had no building background at all. I want to ask him whether he thinks that's appropriate.
Take you through to the council chambers.
We're back the next day. The council has agreed to give me an interview. I'm still hoping to talk to Mr Sherman. Well, we're in. Nope, no Bob. Instead, we've got his boss and his boss's boss. Okay, why have we not had an opportunity to talk to Bob Sherman?
We look at the activity spokespeople, and that's one of my activities, and it's one of Jeff's activities.
So he's come from the health inspectorate and then made the transition into the building controls area.
Yes, and that was the way it was done in those days. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's not a qualified builder or...
No, he does have a diploma in health inspection, yes, and he's obviously undergone a lot of training courses over the years in relation to understanding requirements of the building code.
When I say to people, you know, building controls officials don't actually necessarily have to have any building experience, that they're a little bit aghast at that.
We're not tradespeople. We don't build the house. We just endeavour to ensure, in terms of the building act requirements, that the code is complied with.
You've had one case that's recently been heard that didn't have anyone that had any formal qualifications. That particular building firm has built a significant number of homes in the area. Is that of concern to you?
The statistics that we have available about leaky homes in our district suggest that it's not a large problem.
There's a growing number of claims from this area. I think the council's statistics are going to get a bit of a shake-up very soon. And I still don't know how a building inspector could have no building experience. So the CCC is, you know, reasonable assurance that the home was constructed to meet the performance and durability requirements of the building code.
Well, that's the intention of the CCC, isn't it?
Yeah, and that the durability was a minimum of 50 years.
Yep.
And yet at year 6, you had to spend almost $300,000 on repairing your home.
That's right. Try that with your car.
Mark and Cindy's appeal hearing begins today. They've been struggling for a year and a half, and now it will be up to the District Court judge to decide if they've been treated fairly by the Weathertight Homes Tribunal.
It comes down to the decision of one person, and I guess you're always a bit...
apprehensive.
Yeah, apprehensive about what could still come and where you could end up if the decision isn't actually, isn't a good one for us.
Only weeks later, and much sooner than anyone had anticipated, Mark and Cindy got a tremendous result. The judge agreed that their tribunal decision was seriously flawed and effectively upped their award from around $165,000 to over $300,000. The council was found to have breached its duty of care in conducting inspections and was found liable. The building company also was found liable. Unfortunately, that building company, formerly known as Landmark Homes but now called Flora Creative, has no assets. For a consumer, what does it really mean?
Well, there's no assets to attack. There's no money available to satisfy their claim, which means that they'll typically bring their claim against any other deep-pocketed parties, and typically that would be the local authority.
So for most ratepayers it would seem incredibly unfair.
I'm sure it does, but that's the nature of the joint and several liability regime. But the council wouldn't be there if it wasn't found liable in the first place, so it must have done something wrong. It must have contributed to the loss.
So what does joint and several liability actually mean?
In simple terms, if two or more parties have contributed or caused the same loss, then each is liable for the whole of the loss. What that means in practice is that if a builder has created defective building work and a council has inspected it, then the owner could sue either the council or the builder for the whole of the loss. And in practice, what happens in a lot of cases, of course, is that the council is the last man left standing. There is no builder to sue, and therefore the council, who may only have been found to have contributed 20% or 25% of that loss, is in fact liable for the whole of the amount.